Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and throughout his long and prolific career, he was able to break some of the craziest records in Europe while also inspiring some of the world's most talented youngsters, and among them, super talents like Kylian Mbappé would eventually go on to make his mark on the world, becoming one of the greatest players in PSG's history. So today, we will be comparing two of the most dangerous wingers the game has ever seen, Manchester United's CR7 and PSG's Kylian Mbappé, to find out once and for all who did it better during their first major club. To find out who is a better pick between these two legendary players, we first have to look at just how insane these two were statistically at their best. If we start off with Cristiano Ronaldo, there is a massive difference between how the new generation of Ronaldo's era operated and how the new players of the modern day approach the game. Players back in Ronaldo's era were heavily influenced by the greatness of R9, Ronaldinho, and Zidane, which focuses more on their overall play, instead of a statistical approach which is heavily influenced by the greatness of Messi and Ronaldo. So to say that these two players' statistical impact on their team is night and day would be the understatement of the year. Since the very beginning of his career with PSG, Mbappé has been a monster in front of goal, netting an insane 38 goal contribution in his very first season, and going on to become one of the best goal scorers the French league have ever seen. When Ronaldo, on the other hand, had a much slower start to his career on a statistical level. His game just wasn't built around exploiting the numbers like his modern counterpart, having more flair than anything else. This is exactly the reason why it wasn't until his third season with Man United Ronaldo really started to become a monster, and also why, in a direct goal comparison with Mbappé, Manchester United's CR7 just doesn't stand a chance statistically, and that's despite them transferring to these clubs at the same age. But Ronaldo being statistically inferior to Mbappé during his time at Manchester is hardly a massive setback in many people's eyes, because that wasn't necessarily what made this version of the player such a monster in the first place. It was his complete mastery of damn near everything else on the field. Although it would be easy to just follow the crowd and say that this version of Ronaldo is just better than Mbappé based on the eye test, it would be criminal for us to not go over the overwhelming evidence that should support this notion. First off, in terms of their overall dribbling ability and overall skill, Ronaldo will be the one taking the point for this section, but it's really close. Ronaldo's dribbling aesthetics whenever he's on the ball is so great during these years. He was dubbed one of the most entertaining players in Europe in his peak, and it was the entire reason why Man United has signed the player in the first place. His touch, flair, and creativity on the ball wasn't just great to watch, it was also highly effective in one of the most competitive leagues in the world. But as great as Ronaldo was during his most prolific dribbling season, Mbappe's game was essentially modeled based on how Ronaldo was playing during these years. So in terms of their overall dribbling aesthetics, both of these players are really good and also extremely similar. But what really gives Ronaldo the edge here is that he was more active on the ball during his time at Man United. Not only does he have more touches on average during these games, he was dribbling far more often while also having roughly the same amount of success while doing so too. This is in direct contrast, however, to his passing abilities. Ronaldo dribbling as much as he was simply means that he wasn't passing as much as Mbappé during these years. Mbappe's passing game resulted in more goals being scored for the team while also boosting his numbers. And again, this is not just a case of him passing more than Ronaldo, his passing aesthetics is really similar. So this is Mbappe's first point. Now, in terms of their shooting abilities, one could easily say that Mbappé is for sure the better player, seeing that he is more of a prolific goal scorer throughout the years in question. However, despite the numbers disadvantage, you can make a compelling argument for both sides here. Sure, Mbappé is the more prolific goal scorer, which is quite evident when looking at his overall scoring record in League One. But what really gives Ronaldo a massive advantage here is that he's the more rounded goal scorer when looking at both players. Ronaldo was scoring headers, free kicks, shots with his left, with his right, from long range, from mid range. The guy was just more equipped to deal with the random situations that a game had to offer. When Mbappé is usually running from in behind or shooting from mid range. And this is without talking about the fact that Ronaldo's shooting aesthetics is far superior to Mbappe's, and is also one of the most iconic shooting aesthetics the game has ever seen. So there is a slight edge here for Ronaldo. But again, you could give this point to either one. And finally, for strength and speed, Mbappé would be taking the point for this section without much difficulty at all. Mbappe's fastest sprint speed on record at the high end is 38 km per hour at PSG, while Ronaldo's top speed at Man United is roughly 33, possibly 34 km per hour on the high end. So there is really no comparison there. Mbappé is easily faster and also have a higher acceleration. And at the same time, the same can be said about their physicality. Mbappé is much more of a physical player when compared to Ronaldo, being much more difficult to take off the ball. So essentially, even in the best possible scenario for Ronaldo, contrary to popular belief, the eye test between them is really just a draw. And although the majority of people would say that Ronaldo looks better based on the eye test, again, Mbappé really modeled his game based on how Ronaldo was playing during these years. So Mbappé really has the advantage here. But what about their overall impact on their team? Well, as much as Mbappé was a dominant force in the French league, impact on team for sure goes to Ronaldo, and there's a few reasons why that's the case. First of all, in terms of trophies won, Ronaldo's introduction to Sir Alex Ferguson Man United had an undeniable positive effect. In the 6 years before Ronaldo's transfer to the club, Man United won 6 titles, which included the treble in the year 1999. But after Ronaldo's transfer, Man United won 9 titles in 6 years, which are mostly titles that they wouldn't have had an easy time winning without Ronaldo on the team. However, the same can't be said about Mbappé and his team. Mbappe's PSG didn't necessarily need Mbappé as much as Ronaldo to Man United, especially when you look at the type of attacking players Mbappé was playing with in contrast to the players that he was going up against. PSG would have had a much easier time winning those titles without Mbappé. And this is also a bigger point if we are talking about the Champions League as well. Man United probably wouldn't have won the Champions League without Ronaldo, and that's just what it is. So it's clear that Mbappé does have the edge when it comes to stats and the overall eye test, which are two of the biggest indicators to tell which of these two players were better over the years. However, to finally end this debate, we need to look at who had a bigger prime at these clubs in context to everything that was covered. And well, this is where everything actually gets really one-sided. From a statistical or even the eye test standpoint, Ronaldo just simply doesn't stand a chance. He was really good during his first Ballon d'Or winning year, winning everything that a player could while also reaching the 50-goal barrier for the first time in his career. But next to Mbappe's numbers during the 2021-22 season, Ronaldo's goals just looks regular in comparison. Mbappé at this point was so good, even though 2022 was one of those competitive years when it comes to elite players performing at their best. Mbappé now more than ever was considered one of the most dangerous players on earth, especially the games he played against Real Madrid in the Champions League. It really felt like Mbappé was operating on the same level as a prime R9 that season. Everything just seems easy to the guy, especially after what he did in the World Cup finals. So what's the overall conclusion here? Well, although Ronaldo was better within a few categories based on the eye test, Mbappe's run with PSG is just too good to be compared with. He was better based on the eye test, based on stats, had better games, better tournaments, better seasons, and also had a much bigger peak in contrast to Man United's Ronaldo. And if any one of you guys are wondering just how Mbappé stack up against prime Ronaldo at Madrid, well, let's just say there's a reason why Ronaldo is in the GOAT debate and Mbappé isn't. So yeah, You guys let me know what you think about this video and comment down below who you would like to see next on the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.